Good morning, Dan and Amy. Taking your recommendations for Super Bowl halftime show in between serious topics like the confirmation of a Supreme Court nominee. We disclosed at the end of the last hour it is Maroon 5.
Right, that'll be singing or performing at halftime this year.
Right, you can't call what they do singing. That's right.
Well,
I've suggested Kygo. Mike Scott has suggested Atlanta's very own Zac Brown Band.
oh, Zach Brown's good.
That'd be pretty good.
They put on a nice show at Wrigley.
Yeah.
I like Luke Bryan, but I have a little crush on him right now.
Yeah.
Because I went to his concert.
Mm-hmm.
Got an email. Remember when Dan came on board and he was very, very serious? Amy, look how you've loosened him up and brought out his vocal abilities.
No, I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that, and I don't recall it in present. Speaking of remembering things, it's going to turn our attention to the state of play with respect to Kavanaugh's nomination. White men turn out to be a real big problem in this saga, according to a white dude from California named John Garamendi, who is parroting the party line.
Women across this nation should be outraged at what these white men senators are doing to this woman. This woman needs a fair hearing, as every woman does who brings forth a charge such as Professor Ford is bringing forth.
So, again, tell me that this is not about the left's identity politics. You have a senior citizen, crusty white dude from California who's a Democrat member of Congress who doesn't say Republican senators. White men senators. That's the talking point he got from Mazie Hirano, all the men of the country shut up. That's the talking point he got from Di-Fi. That's the talking point that everybody is repeating because it is about moving suburban women to the polls on November 6th and making their, framing their choice for congressional offices around cultural identity, not around economic self-sufficiency. And so you heard the same rap from Kristen Gillibrand, the grilling that she received from Jim Acosta on CNN. Here's a microphone talk. And Gillibrand did so. She's being treated unfairly, talking about Miss Ford, of course.
The fact that Mark Judge doesn't want to testify, well, maybe he doesn't want to be under oath. And so that is a red flag to me that they are trying to railroad this. They're trying to create a sham hearing on Monday. There's no rush for this. They have not given her time. And to not even have the courtesy of an investigation of the facts first and then have corroborating witnesses. Anita Hill had not only an FBI investigation, but she had 22 witnesses on her allegations with more witnesses that wanted to testify. This sounds like a sham hearing designed only to have a he said, she said. But the truth is, I believe her. She has a credible allegation against Judge Kavanaugh. She told her therapist 5 years about it. Her husband, she told a friend a year ago. She told a reporter before Judge Kavanaugh was even nominated. This is all indicia of truthfulness. And now she wants an FBI investigation to get to the facts. I believe her, and I think the women of America should be paying attention right now to how the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee are treating a woman who wants to testify to make sure that someone who gets a lifetime appointment has the character necessary to be a Supreme Court justice.
There it is, and I go back again to say, yes, of course, they love the delay. I don't think I think they realize they're not going to get it. So now it's about using Ms. Ford as a cudgel to beat Republicans up and to beat out suburban women for November 6th. That's all it is, and it couldn't be more transparent, particularly with those like Gillibrand auditioning for the presidency in 2020 or the Democrat nomination for in 2020. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our colleague Mike Gallagher, host of the eponymous Mike Gallagher Show that comes on after ours, 9 to 11 a.m. weekdays on these airwaves.
I love that word, eponymous.
Oh,
love that word.
I had
By the
one
way,
of those in my backyard last night.
listen, Amy, Dan, Barry Manilow, halftime Super Bowl. Now that would be a Super Bowl I'd watch.
He's passed away, hasn't he?
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Are you? Come on.
He's on his fifth facelift. What are you talking about?
I would say.
I write the songs.
Oh man!
Oh,
I love that's my era.
Oh, boy.
That's my era.
Barry Manilow. Air Supply. What about Air Supply?
What about Jewish Elvis, Neil Diamond?
Hey, I take Neil Diamond. That's my era too.
That would be a good show too.
Now, I could do I'm Coming to America, make all the people exercised about immigration, excited, it could be a big deal.
I
still
half
like
the group
Kygo.
would take a knee.
And by the way, Paul McCartney, I would say
please.
Paul McCartney, but he can't keep his hands to himself.
Oh.
Ouch. Well, hopefully no wardrobe malfunctions with any of these guys.
That is for sure.
So good morning.
Good morning.
Are we going with Dr. Blasey or Dr. Ford?
I just call her Professor. I just call her Christine Ford.
But the
sorry.
lawyer, her lawyers are insisting that she's
Familiar.
wants to be known by Blasey, not Ford.
Oh, Christine Blasey.
So
Yes.
Miss Blasey now. Okay,
Yes,
fine.
yes. I'm not sure why that's important in a sea of idiocy. Guys,
They're looking for more people to come forward.
And also, Mike, just on this show, I don't know, you run your own shop, all right?
That's
But on this show, you have to be a medical doctor to be called doctor. I'm a Juris Doctorate. I don't demand that Amy call me doctor. There's no doctors unless you're a medical doctor.
And isn't it always great that the pretentious people who insist, you always know who they are. They say, "My name is Doctor. I'm a doctor."
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Just be quiet. Would you just stop and put your name down?
Yeah, okay,
but they're proud of
Bob.
that. Hey,
Right.
good for them. Good for them. Hey, there's been a history of the political parties, and I like the way the tide is turning, because for a long time it seemed the Republican Party was getting really good at snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. We've talked about that and lamented that over the years. The Democrats are doing this right now. This thing is backfiring in a way that they never anticipated. They are hoping, as you said, Dan, to drive women to the polls. They're thinking this is going to be a midterm election issue, and that's all this is about. This isn't about the alleged abuse of a woman 36 years ago. This isn't about Dr. Blasey or Professor Ford. This is about politicizing a very serious allegation that is going to follow this guy around now for the rest of his life, no matter what happens. But you're hearing the pushback from people like Mika Brzezinski, from the San Francisco Chronicle, Dianne Feinstein's home paper, saying she handled this terribly. This has been unfair to the accuser, unfair to the accused. And they play the clips. It makes my head spin to listen to the audio clips you just played. This is terrible. She's not getting a fair hearing. The Republicans are bending over backwards to give her a fair hearing. You want it in private? We'll give it in private. You want us to come to you in California? We'll come to you in California. We just want you to be heard, because, of course, somebody who makes an accusation like this deserves to be heard. Now,
I heard Senator Grassley say that there's a 10 a.m. deadline Friday.
Correct.
To decide whether or not she's going to be testifying or talking to them, whether it's in D.C. or California, right?
Correct, and that was on the table last night. I mean, the lawyers came out early on, made all the rounds. They were on ABC, CBS, NBC, all the morning shows the other day. She'll go anywhere, anytime. She wants to tell her story. To reasonable, normal Americans, it is not a stretch to say that if you're going to come forward and try to destroy a man because you feel he did something to you 36 years ago, you're going to have to tell the story. There's nothing unreasonable about that. Tell the story. Let at least the senators on the Judiciary Committee hear you. Let them hear him. But of course, we know that none of this is being done in good faith, guys. It's not. It just isn't. It's all about the midterm election. And I really do believe, you see the generic congressional ballot, Republicans picked up 4 points in the last couple of days. It's getting tighter and tighter. It shouldn't be tight in an off-year election like this. This ought to ostensibly go to the Democrats. I don't know that it will. I really don't. And this could be that 11th hour mistake that the Democrats are making that lets the Republicans hang on to the House and the Senate. We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been coming into the fore for some years now. But this sort of national case of such profile really drives it home, I think, to men generally, and particularly when you have a United States Senator tell men to shut up and step up and do the right thing for once. The antipathy towards men, the presumption of guilt that all men live under now, at least according to some on the left. Obviously, not everybody believes that. Right-thinking people, reasonable people of all political stripes don't believe that. But the political class of the left absolutely seems to, or they want to capitalize on a minority of the population that does believe that and could drive people, could sort of herd people in the direction of cultural Marxism, the way they've been so successful on so many other issues. But you've got to see, you've got to suspect that people are watching this and saying, so an unfounded allegation from 3 decades ago could derail a Supreme Court nominee who's otherwise had a distinguished career, with no evidentiary support. Why couldn't it derail me in my corporate office or my law practice or my dental practice or whatever?
This is the real danger of those who lift up the Me Too movement, who conflate letting the accuser be heard and insisting that the accuser be believed. If you've noticed, the activists often say, well, you have to believe her. You just have to believe her.
Wow.
And that's so wrong. I mean, that presumes, if you were going to script this out, you've got a progressive professor from the San Francisco Bay Area who obviously doesn't want Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court. So if you're scripting this, again, I'm not trying to remove or assert that this didn't happen. We don't know. We don't know what happened 36 years ago. But there certainly can be a suspicion of a political motive here. But to say if somebody makes the accusation, then it must be so. She must be believed. That's first of all, it's un-American. It's antithetical to everything we believe in terms of a presumption of innocence, due process, and again, normal Americans. Kurt Schlichter. I don't know what you guys think of Kurt, but I just think he's so terrific, and he's got a book out. I'm going to talk to him next week on the radio show. He calls it The Normals. I mean, the normal Americans are watching, are paying attention. Normal Americans understand these basic principles of fairness and decency that seem to be out the window. So we shall see.
Reason, and just reason.
Reason, just some reason and logic. There's no logic, absent logic. And how about this goofball from Hawaii? She's now become the Maxine Waters. I mean, I love these guys that show that they're real. I mean, these are not people splitting atoms anytime soon. I mean, good Lord, Kamala Harris. The more you hear from these folks, the more you realize there's not a whole lot of lights on upstairs. And this is what voters are going to have to decide November the 6th. Register to vote. You got to get out. You must vote. We've got to we've got to let our voices be heard because we can fix this.
So, Mike, do you think it's a possibility she has a case of mistaken identity?
That's what's being suggested in the last 12 hours. A lot of people are starting to suggest that. Of course, that was first floated by Orrin Hatch. 36 years ago, I'm not trying to be glib here. I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. So, if something happened in a drunken sort of party of a bunch of teenagers, who knows? I'll tell you one thing about the so-called narrative of predators who do these kinds of horrible things. There almost always are other corroborating cases that come forward, and there has not been anything with Brett Kavanaugh. This is it.
I did something stupid in high school when I was 15. I remember exactly where I was. I remember how I got there, and I remember how I got home. For her to say she doesn't know whose house she was in.
I can and we can all, Amy, we can all relate to that. Barry Wobbler and I, in when I was in a freshman in high school, we stole bottles of beer, and we somehow were running down the alley in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio, and the police were coming down the alley after us. We were so scared, we dropped the bottles. They crashed. I was crying. He was sobbing. And I remember exactly what block it was. I can tell you what time of day it was.
The beer, Mike.
No, it broke. We broke it. We dropped it all. We were
never
so
drink
afraid.
beer again.
Oh Mike. My gosh! That's why I've never really been much of I'm kind of a teetotaler. I remember the Dayton police chasing us down. But honestly, all kidding aside, I remember exactly what block it took place in, what time it happened. I mean, and that was our traumatic thing. Stupidly doing something with beer. Imagine what it must be like to have a horrible assault and how you'd forget where, when. How you got there, how you got home. I don't know. The whole thing has a lot of questions, more questions than answers. And I also fear for and feel for people with legitimate claims of assault who now are being sort of, going to be marginalized by something like this being politicized. This shouldn't be politicized. It ought to be about the truth, and people ought to know what really happened.
All right. Well, Mike, I'll find out what Amy did when she's 15, and I'll let you know what it was.
I want to know all the details, and then we'll put it to a Barry Manilow song.
Very good. Mike Gallagher, host of the Mike Gallagher Show, 9 a.m. weekdays on these airways, follows us. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.